What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Food City Dirt Race Top 5 DFS Picks video for Sunday, April 17th, also known as Easter Sunday, at Bristol Motor Speedway, the dirt version at that. As always, I'm your host, Chris Pennell. You can find me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and this video is presented by PrizePicks. In today's video, we are going over general track strategy, how to approach the slate from a DFS perspective, and my top 5 favorite picks on the slate. Keep in mind this video is being recorded pre-practice and qualifying, which is going to be very important this weekend. So some of my thoughts and opinions on these drivers could end up changing throughout the weekend. So making sure you're staying up to date on what happens on the track on Friday and Saturday will be very beneficial to you when constructing fantasy NASCAR lineups this weekend. And if you want that more up-to-date info and analysis, you can find me and Jason on the Awesemo Live Before Lock show, breaking down the entire slate on Sunday evening and answering any questions you may end up having. And as far as how we should approach this slate from a DFS perspective, we are kind of in the dark as of right now on Friday morning when we are recording, because I'm planning on relying very heavily on what happens in practice on Friday. We do have 2 1-hour sessions, so we're going to get a lot of practice data, which is going to be very, very big for a track that we don't have many data points to point to. We also have 4 heat races on Saturday evening, which is going to set the field, and it'll be nice to see some of these drivers actually driving in racing conditions, which is going to be another big key part of how I'm going to approach this slate and seeing how these drivers react once we're on the dirt and racing conditions instead of practice. But like I said, as of right now, we do not have many data points to point to. We've had 1 race at dirt for the Cup Series, and a lot of the drivers are saying that that race was completely irrelevant for this year because there was different track conditions, with the track kind of being destroyed by weather that entire weekend. They also raced during the day on a Monday when it was supposed to be at night because the race ended up getting rained out. And drivers like Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Larson have been saying the same things, and I'm going to trust them because, like I said, not many things to point to this weekend, especially since last year was in the Gen 6 car. Now we're in the next gen car, so you have to assume it's going to be completely different. So the only things we can kind of look to right now are some of the Vegas odds, which I think can be at least somewhat reliable because a lot of the dirt track racers like Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, you're going to see at the top of the charts. But for me personally, it's going to mainly be focusing on the drivers that were fast in practice because that should carry over. I think some of the drivers that have unloaded fast so far this year will be fast once again. For example, like a Ryan Blaney, a Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick. We should see those guys pop near the top of the charts once again, and there'll be drivers that I'm certainly looking to target. And one thing I will say is that dominator points aren't going to be as important as they have been the past 2 weeks, where we've had 400 laps each with around 300 total dominator points. Only 250 laps in this race, and there's a decent chance we could have a good amount of carnage. So maybe it's more of a focus on place differential and finishing position in this race rather than dominator points, unless we see a clear-cut top driver in practice that maybe starts near the front of the field. So getting into the picks, we'll start with number 5 here. We have Bubba Wallace, $7,500 over on DK, and the same exact price over on FanDuel at 7.5. And I'm never really a fan of touting Bubba Wallace, but I do think this is a decent week for it. If you're looking at his Bristol dirt race finish, I should say last year, it was pretty poor, but I do think that is a bit misleading. He did finish 27th, but he did have one of the better average running positions in the field of 12.4. And he is a winner at dirt before. Now, the only other dirt race we have for NASCAR is Eldora in Ohio. And back in 2015, I believe, way back when, several years ago, Bubba Wallace actually did win a dirt race, so he does have slight dirt experience there. And his odds over in Vegas are actually pretty decent compared to most of these guys in the 7K range. So I do think there is some value there. Maybe more so on FanDuel because it's a little bit cheaper compared to DraftKings. But I still think he's a good play nonetheless, as long as he can show us some speed in practice. And moving on to number 4, we have Ross Chastain, $8,500 on DK, but a lot cheaper over on FanDuel at only $6,800. And you have to think that's probably because the Vegas odds are a little bit lower on him compared to most of the people in the 8K range. But that's fine with me. I will certainly take the dip here. If this race is more like an asphalt concrete race compared to a dirt race, like Kyle Larson said, where you really can't compare this to a dirt track no matter how many times you've raced on dirt, that really shouldn't mean anything here. At the Bristol dirt race, we'll see if that ends up happening. But looking at last season, Ross Chastain did finish 35th at the dirt, but did run in Eldora in 2019, did finish 12th in that race. But I am mainly banking on a driver that has been extremely fast this year, and you have to imagine that speed is still going to carry over. He has been one of the best drivers in the field this season, averaging 55.5 DraftKings points per race, the most of all drivers. An average finish inside the top 10, has a win, 4 top 5s, which again is the most of all drivers, and also 4 top 10s with a decent chunk of fast laps and laps led. If He's gotten a little fast once again. I think he's a steal over on FanDuel, maybe a little bit harder to get to over on DraftKings, but I still like the price point nonetheless. And moving on to number 3, we have Ryan Blaney, $9,400 on DraftKings and $9,500 over on FanDuel. Huge price decrease over on FanDuel as he was around $13,000 last week. And I realize these are completely different tracks, and we're now on dirt. And I wouldn't say Ryan Blaney is a dirt expert or anything, but he did finish 8th last year with a completely broken down car. I believe he was missing, I want to say it was like the left rear, where it was just completely, it was not a pretty looking car, to put it lightly, but he still raced his way to a top 10 finish. And again, if we were banking on cars that have been fast so far this year, Ryan Blaney is near the very tops of the chart with Ross Chastain, like we just mentioned, averaging 45 DraftKings points per race. One of the best drive ratings, 4 top 10s, and the second most laps led and the second most fast laps. And if he's going to be fast in practice, he is someone that's certainly on my radar. I love his price point. It definitely came down to earth compared to last week, and he's just been fast at all the short tracks, and Bristol is still a short track. And if you think this plays out more like regular Bristol than dirt Bristol, Ryan Blaney is one of the better dominators at Bristol as he completely crushes short tracks, whether it be short flat tracks or just Bristol in general. He has been the man at these tracks to pick up dominator points. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a very strong play at a pretty fair price point for a guy that's been great so far this year. And moving on to number 2, a favorite of mine, William Byron, $10,000 on DraftKings, $12,000 over on FanDuel. If you rostered him last week, he treated you quite well on his way to around 140 total DraftKings points. Absolutely crushed it. And while he's not your prototypical dirt guy, William Byron's a guy that can really pick up on things quite easily. Doesn't even have that much cup car experience. He kind of started on iRacing, and he's now one of the better drivers in the entire field. And while he's not a dirt guy, he was great here at Bristol Dirt last year with an average running position inside the top 5, got a P6 finish, got around 50 DraftKings points, had the 4th best driver rating, and also had 21 fast laps, which is top 5 of all drivers. And if you're looking at this season's numbers, he has been absolutely killing it. The second most DraftKings points per race, only behind Ross Chastain. One of the best running positions, the best drive rating, has the win, 3 top 5s, the most laps led, and the most fast laps. Actually has 2 wins if you include Atlanta, which was a super speedway, so I hate to put too much into that. But no matter the track or track type, William Byron has been killing it, and I have to assume he's going to be fast in practice once again. And he still has the 5th best odds to win this race despite having a complete lack of dirt experience. So I'm loving William Byron. I think he's still a little bit too cheap at $10K flat. $12,000 over on FanDuel looks pretty good too. No matter where he starts, I think he's certainly going to be a pretty good fixture of my lineups. And before we get into the next pick, I want to talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks. They offer daily prop-based contests. You can use promo code Awesemo for a $100 first match deposit bonus. There is no sharks, optimizers, or mass entries. 5-player lineups can have up to 10 times your entry fee. Use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. Download in the App Store, on Google Play, or play on PrizePicks.com. Use our free player props tool to help you make the best selections. Get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. You'll receive an email within 24 to 48 hours after to redeem your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And moving on to my number 1 play for the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol Motor Speedway, we have no other, and it should be no surprise here, Kyle Larson, $11,200 on DraftKings, all the way to $14,000 over on FanDuel, the most expensive driver on both sites, but deservedly so. He's got the best odds to win this race at plus 550, which is no surprise there. If we are talking about dirt track kings, Kyle Larson is at the very top of the list. If he's not driving a cup car, there's a good chance on a weekend night or just no matter what it is or what day it is, we usually see Kyle Larson driving whatever kind of car it is on dirt, and he's usually at the very top of the leaderboards or winning the race and just absolutely killing it. The guy loves dirt tracks. It's something he is excellent in. And while last year the finish wasn't pretty at Bristol Dirt, negative 12.3 DraftKings points, finished 29th with a pretty poor average running position. He did have to go to the rear to start that race, and he ended up getting wrecked with Christopher Bell, the 2 best dirt racers in all the Cup Series. So it kind of opened the door for everybody else to have a pretty good race, removing the top 2 cars. But assuming that doesn't happen again, extremely hard to bet against Kyle Larson here. And if you think this isn't going to play out like a dirt race like Kyle Larson said, well, good news for you, because Kyle Larson is one of the best drivers at Bristol, no matter which way you put it, if it's dirt or concrete. 74 DraftKings points per race and average finish inside the top 10 the past 6 races here. Also, the most laps led and the most fast laps. I know Kyle Larson hasn't been the most dominant car this year, but if we're betting on driver talent and just dirt racers in general, Kyle Larson's got to be the very top of your board no matter what. So to recap, we have at number 5, Bubba Wallace, number 4, Ross Chastain, number 3, Ryan Blaney, number 2, William Byron, and number 1, Kyle Larson. And all these guys have either been fast this season, have dirt experience, or like their price points quite a bit. And if you did end up enjoying today's free content, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already, and leave a comment down below agreeing or disagreeing with any of the takes I had today, as we love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And also, you can follow us on Sunday for the Live Before Lock show, where we'll break down the entire slate, me and Jason, and answer any questions you may end up having. But with that being said, I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm very excited to see what happens on Bristol Dirt on Sunday night.